What's going on, guys? This is Sam, and at Google's I/O conference earlier today, which is basically their equivalent of Apple's WWDC, they announced the second developer preview for Android P, which is the upcoming next version of Android. I want to show you 5 features from Android P that look like they were pretty much directly copied from iOS. Some are nearly identical, some are pretty close, so let's go ahead and jump in. First up, there are new gestures in Android P. They look and function pretty much identical to how they function on the iPhone X running iOS 11, although instead of swiping up to exit an application, you just tap on this little bar at the bottom. There's also a number of other things you can do with this bar as well. If you swipe up and pause, you go into a new version of the app switcher. I believe this may be called the dashboard in Android P, and it works just like the iOS 11 app switcher. You swipe up on an application to close it, or you can swipe over and then swipe down or tap to actually enter another application. Because this is a developer beta, obviously the animations are not perfect yet. There's also this other gesture where you can swipe from left to right on the home bar and swipe through multitasking just like this, which is another interesting one. This is a little bit different than the iPhone X. The iPhone X does not have swipe and hold like functionality like we're seeing here on Android P, and it looks pretty cool. This is something that I think could be very beneficial on the iPhone X in the future, but there is no question that although Google says they were working on these features for a very long time, the gesture controls in Android P took some heavy inspiration from the gesture controls in iOS 11 on the iPhone X. Next up, there's a new screenshot tool. If I go ahead and take a screenshot very quickly on the Pixel and continue to hold down, a notification will pop up and it says share, edit, and delete at the very top of your screen. If you tap on edit, you get a markup view exactly like it was introduced with iOS 11. You can draw on it, you can highlight things, you can change your colors here. It's all pretty cool, and of course you can undo or redo actions. It doesn't look like you can type anything on here, which you also can't do on iOS, but that would be a cool feature. So if you take a screenshot, you want to mark things up just like you could in iOS 11. With Android P coming soon for everybody, you'll be able to do the exact same thing. And number 3, if we head over to notifications, at the very top here, you get a control center like looking set of toggles. Now it isn't identical because control center toggles on iOS tend to animate. They look really pretty, and they also have different colors other than blue as well, depending on what toggle you are tapping on. In Android P, they look similar, but they all turn blue and none of them do any special animations. So while this one is an exact copy, if you compare this to control center on something like the iOS 11 side by side, there are a lot of similarities, and it does look pretty similar. Of course, on Android, you do get some expanded functionality whenever you swipe down, so this part is a lot different than iOS, but if you just look at these toggles and compare them to iOS 11, they're pretty close. This next one is big. If you go into settings and enable Android developer settings, you actually have the ability in Android P to spoof a notch, and this one is really fascinating to look at. I couldn't believe that this was actually coming to Android when I first read about it, but it is. It's here, and it looks like an iPhone X in a lot of cases. You can go over to developer options. Once you've done that, you can scroll down to your developer options. Under drawing, there's something that says simulate a display with a cutout, and if you tap on any of these, I'm going to tap on double display cutout, and as your screen quickly refreshes, you now have a notch on Android. The iPhone was, I think, the second phone on the market, if not the first, to introduce a notch, and now Android phones like crazy are having notches, and there's a lot of polarization surrounding notches. Some people seem to tolerate them or even maybe like them. Other people absolutely despise them. I'm all for the notch if it is well thought out and it makes sense as part of the phone's design, but at this point, a lot of Android manufacturers just appear to be throwing them on phones because the iPhone did it first, or other Android manufacturers are doing it as well. So if you are a developer on Android and you want to test out a notch, or you're running the Android P developer beta and you want to see what a notch would look like on a regular phone, you can do that by following these steps. The last new feature in Android P that looks like it was taken directly from iOS is actually one that is very beneficial, so I have no hard feelings about this one being added to Android. Not that I have hard feelings about anything, because I think these only make the experience on Android better than they were in the previous version of Android. Whenever you have text right here, in the past you'd have to just kind of guess wherever the cursor was going to be on Android. On iOS forever, we've had the little text magnifier that shows you exactly where your finger and therefore the cursor is. So on Android now, in pretty much any text field in the operating system, you can take your finger and drag, and you'll notice that when you take that little blue line at the bottom, or the blue selector, when you drag around, it looks just like it does on iOS. You can see exactly where the cursor is, and it magnifies the text so you can see exactly what you want to do rather than your finger covering it, which is always something that confused me about selecting text in Android in the past. Those are 5 Android P features that look like they took heavy inspiration from or directly copied copied iOS 11, but of course this is a two-way street. Google and Apple do the same things to each other every year. When iOS 12 Beta 1 is released in just under a month now at their developers conference, WWDC, I could make the exact same video showing you 5 to 10 features that iOS 12 and Apple stole from Android P and Google. Of course, let me know your thoughts about all these features down below. I love reading your comments, and if you enjoyed this video, if it helped you out, if you learned something new, if you enjoyed watching, feel free to drop a like below, and of course, hit subscribe for more videos like this in the future. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can head over to shop.iupdateos.com to grab the shirt I'm wearing right now, in addition to a couple of others. For now, I've been Sam. I hope all of you are doing great, and I'll talk to you in my next video.